Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books. What a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together. What a yummy snack. PBJamz.
I am going to Corpus Christi uh, to talk to educators about my book, and it's because they bought one of the programs, this area. They bought one of the programs, benchmark education. So one of
Yes.
the program, and they have connected Why the Turtle Walks So Slowly. So I am going to be the feature speaker. I leave Monday morning, and then I'll do the presentation on Saturday. And the person who, well, from the education office in Corpus Christi says, maybe you want to talk to the teachers about a lesson. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, I haven't written a lesson plan in 8 years because I retired 8 years ago. Okay, Sandra, turn on the light bulb. So, of
Right.
course, I did. And Tony, it felt really good.
Yeah.
It felt really good. I think that I come up with something that I can leave them with that is tied to the book. So it worked out okay. But my first reaction was panic. I said, what am I gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. Had to flex some muscles you haven't used in a while.
Exactly. I said,
Yeah.
wait a second. This is for elementary. I was a high school teacher.
Oh, that's a whole different ball game too, for sure.
It's a
Yeah.
whole, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think I came up with something that
Oh, I'm
that
sure
would
you
be,
did.
that would be fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely. Good. Well, that is so exciting. So this is for a school district that you're
Well, I think it is.
uh-huh.
It's. I believe, yes, I believe it is. And back in October, I did a presentation for teachers and librarians in San Francisco. And
Okay.
again, it was the same setup. Is connecting my book to the program, and they had a couple of other ladies there. Oh gosh, if I can remember their names right now, I can't, but they're experts on bilingual education.
Oh,
And one real interesting thing is one of them, Maria, it happens that she worked for one of my dearest friends, somebody.
really?
Yes, yes, for my late friend Margarita, and we started comparing notes, and I say, "Oh my gosh, this is a really small world
Yes.
that we have a person in common." So it was fun, and I told Elizabeth, "Hey, whatever they want to send me, just send me. I'll be
Nice.
happy to do it." So I'm happy. I'm happy
Yeah.
about that.
That's awesome. Very good. That's very encouraging. Nice. Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say things in this business go slowly. So this is an opportunity to get my book out there.
Yeah, right, because it's been out for a while. When
Since May of last year.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, hopefully this will give it a little boost. I don't have a huge audience. I mean, I'm still building my audience, but I mean, I have some, the hope is always that you have an audience that you bring with you, and I have an audience that I bring with me, and there's some different people that we can introduce each other to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I have a pretty loyal following in some folks, and I do keep growing, so that's exciting. And I'm beginning to get more and more teachers on board with, kind of perusing the site. And when they come, they're excited. So that makes me feel good, as you were saying, to give them something that they can, that they can use. And so when we finish, we'll have a little mini teacher's guide, and you're welcome to reference this blog. It'll stay up, forever. I mean, I can't imagine it going anywhere. It's going to be up indefinitely, I guess I should say. So I mean,
Okay.
you can always include this link in your teacher materials that you're sharing with folks
Oh,
too.
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
And some
Huh.
people add it to their website. I don't know if you have a place for things like
I
that,
I
but
I do have a website that
Hmm.
I need to be better at it. I have to admit, I have a love-hate relationship with technology. Nowadays, you have to have technology, but
Yeah.
really, I am not very savvy with
Right.
it.
Yeah. Well, you're doing well on Zoom. That's more than I can say for some folks. So
Well,
you're good.
I
Yeah,
try.
I know.
I try, but my great niece was the one who created my website, and she knows that we need to revise it, and we need because things have happened since the
Right.
website was created, and to add those, I mean, the things that have been happening uh,
Right.
to it, so.
Yeah, I think it's always a work in progress. And two, I think there's so many things to keep up with. Like we're juggling so many balls in the air at all the time, and it's hard to keep up with social media and website and revisions and continuing to write and publicizing and marketing, and like it's and I'm still working full time, and I lead a local literacy organization, and I have an after school writers program, and I have this blog, and I cook for my extended family. There's 6 to 7 of us twice a week, so trying to keep those family connections going, after my mom passed. And it's a lot of juggling. It's a lot of juggling.
You're a very busy
I
person.
am very
And
busy.
and I understand what you're saying. If I am constantly visiting schools, which is fine because that's how to get the book out there. But when am I going to be writing?
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I suppose there's some people that are really good at marketing. I do bring up, the book. I will post, read, and I will upload the book. Plus, I volunteer in my local library. I read to the little ones, and I am going to have an event next. Is it next? No, we're going to do it in April to connect it to the Day of the Book, which is a Mexican holiday.
Oh,
And the children's librarian said, how about if we connect it with this? And I said, sounds wonderful. Since the book takes place in Cuba, and I said, so we're going to be planning what it is that we are going to be doing. But that is a very busy library where I volunteer
hmm.
because it's right next door to a playground.
Oh,
So
yeah,
the
right.
children come to the playground and then they come to the library, and also they have lots of activities
Mhm.
at the library. It's not a quiet place.
That's good. Right, right, right.
And they're wonderful. The librarians are great. The librarian that focuses on young middle grade or young adult is a former student of mine.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
so that made
Yeah.
when I walk, hey, weren't you my student? And at first she's, oh, Miss Martine, and so it's really nice to see her doing a great job because she has amazing activities for the older kids. They have started a book club for middle grade students
Oh,
now.
nice.
Yes, which is really nice. So we
Yeah.
have the read aloud to the little ones, and
Uh-huh.
I even get babies. And
Right.
there's a nanny that she brings her little guy, whose name is Brooke, and is 4 months old. And she
Oh,
says, I read to him a lot, but
yeah.
I want to bring him here to have somebody else read to him. And of course, I use the board books with him because
Yeah.
he's 4 months old. But by
Right.
golly, Tony, he does listen.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
just tell. You
Yeah.
can tell that he is listening. And there's another little girl that the nanny, 3 years old, the nanny brings her every single week. And you could tell that they read to her a lot
Hmm.
because she asks questions,
Oh,
and
nice.
she's paying attention, except This was funny. I was reading to her a book about unicorns, and then we finished reading the book, and I turned to her and I say, Emma, do you have a unicorn at home? She gets really serious and she says to me, No, I have a baby. And she meant her baby sister. And I thought that was so funny.
They do come up with some of the most fun little
Oh, it
things.
is so fun. And then
Yeah.
there's this little guy named Ezra who's 4 years old, and he thinks that I should be he's the only one that I should read to,
Right, right, right.
nobody else. But he's learned to take turns, and I say, okay, I read this book to you. Now it's so and so's turn to read the book that they want me to read. But he absolutely will not read books will have me read books to him that have a girl protagonist.
Oh,
He just at that age, which he
yeah,
wants nothing to do with girls, but he's incredible. I love that little guy. He's
yeah.
incredible. The questions he asks and the things that he says about the books that I am reading to. So what I found about reading to the little ones that has brought out something that I really didn't know that I had, because I have to admit, I was a pretty sarcastic high school teacher in a fun way. In a
Right.
fun way,
Yeah.
I would come up with phrases. Somebody would put their head down, not paying attention, and I would stand right next to them. I never raised my voice, and I would stand next to the person. I said, "Are you checking your eyelids for holes?" And then, oh no, 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 and so I would say things of that sort.
Yeah,
But so it's very different, the high schoolers with the little ones.
right.
And I just started doing this, it's going 2 years now. And I am at the library every single week, dropping off picking books up. And one of the gals that was at the checking out the books, she said to me, you had to volunteer to read to the little ones. And I looked at her and said, how do you know that I would be good at that? She says, your energy. You come here, you talk to everyone, you say hello. She said, why do you go talk to the children's librarian? So I went and I talked to the children's librarian. And she says, oh, we love to have you. I went through the. And then I said to her, by the way, I'm having a book coming out. How do I get it into the system? And so we're able to get the book into the system.
Nice.
Yes,
Good for
yes.
you. Yeah. Sometimes it's very difficult. I've heard so many people say that they have had such trouble.
It was easier to get the book in the county library system than it was in the Los Angeles system, even though Jennifer, the children's librarian, was right on top of things, but everything comes from downtown.
Uh-huh.
Bureaucracy, it's what it is.
Right.
But the county system, there was a form. I just put in the form, and they just got it. And but you're right. You figure, hey, you have an author. I know that there's a certain connection with kids
Mm-hmm.
when they meet an author.
Yeah,
Be,
exactly.
because, oh, a real person wrote this book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And especially when it's somebody local and they go, oh, well, I mean, this person is like she's a teacher, but she can be an author too. Like, I didn't know you could do that. And I mean, I think it's so
Yeah.
good for them in so many ways, like so many ways. I've been bringing people in, especially like new authors that are close enough to my school. I've been bringing people in, several people a year for. I'm connected with the Reading Council, so sometimes it's through them. But like, I just think it's so cool to have them come face to face with an author who's actually been through the process and has done the hard work. It's good.
Well, with the kid, absolutely. I remember when I got into children's book writing because of my daughter. I never thought of becoming a writer. I
Okay.
was a Spanish major, and if I had told my parents that I was going to be a writer, my dad would have said, "Have you really given thought to this?" And my mother would have done this. Are you crazy? You're going to starve. So I never thought of it. I knew
Right.
from the time I was in the eighth grade that I wanted to be a teacher.
Right.
that was my thing. And
Uh-huh.
but then when my daughter was born, I am a reader. I have always been a reader, and
Right.
I come from a family of readers. And I her father and I decided that we wanted to raise her in a bilingual household. He
Mhm.
didn't speak Spanish. He, a nice young man from Kansas, and he would speak English, and I would speak Spanish to her. And when she would go to my parents. Of course, my parents spoke Spanish to her, but in order to reinforce the skills, the listening skills, I wanted books in Spanish, and there was a very nice children's bookstore not far from where I lived, and I went there. And at the time, this was 1984, and at the time, the books that were written in Spanish were really bad. They were filled with mistakes, and the paper wasn't nice paper at all. I would say that it was probably one thickness above newsprint.
Mm.
And I bought the book and I corrected the mistakes. And I guess it was meant for me to be a writer because when I got home, in the mailbox, there was the catalog for extension classes at a local university. And in there was a class titled Writing and Illustrating Children's Books.
Oh, wow.
And I figure, okay, forget about the illustrating because I can't do it, but I
Me
can
neither.
do, I can cut pictures out of magazines or I can do, stick figures. And I took the class and the lady that taught her, Susan Goldman Rubin, a total sweetheart. And she was very encouraging. And she was the one to say, oh, you have to join the Society of Children's Book Writers. At the time, illustrators was not even part
Oh,
of
right.
of the name of the organization. So
Mhm.
that year I went to the annual conference. They only had the conference in LA. And I was just in awe of what I was hearing. I took notes and I say, oh my gosh, I want to be part of this world.
Yeah.
So it was also through SCBWI that I found a critique group. I mean, I'm still friends with one member of that critique group. We still
Right.
get together every month
That's
to touch
awesome.
base. And so we would bring in our work, and there was this other lady named Evelyn, and she brought her little girl because she didn't have a babysitter. And I did the same thing with my daughter. I would bring into the group because I didn't have a babysitter. My ex-husband was working on his master's degree, and so I didn't have anybody to watch her. So we would bring in another one would bring in that her 6-year-old daughter, and we would read her stories. And I remember Molly, the 6-year-old, who would say, I like that. Oh no, that doesn't work. And by golly, the kid was right. Anyhow, so I made my first sale to a children's magazine that doesn't exist anymore. Hey, and then I made another sale to another children's magazine. I was on a roll, right?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, SCBWI used to print oh God, I'm not thinking right here. Oh, their bulletin. That's the word I was looking for, the bulletin, every other month.
Uh-huh.
And right in the bulletin, so this is 1992. So I have made two sales, selling the articles. Oh, and some puzzles to another children magazine.
Okay.
And it was in the bulletin with where somebody had written that they Walker Books, an editor of Walker Books, they don't exist anymore. They were bought by one of the big ones, and that they were looking for middle grade biographies about a Latino.
Oh,
And I had toyed with the idea. In fact, I had notes and I had looked into to write a biography of the Cuban ballerina Alicia Alonso, who was the founder of the National Ballet of Cuba.
wow.
And one interesting thing about her was that she was partially blind.
Wow.
Yeah, she was. She was partially blind. And when she was one of the charter members of the American Ballet Theater, and no, but yeah, am I right? It's been a while. Anyhow, during the off season, she would go to Cuba and bring dancers from American Ballet Theater. And she would also start in TV programs. So there was this TV program, it was musical, that was called El Album Phillips because Phillips Milk of Magnesia was the sponsor.
Okay.
All right. So Alicia Alonso is dancing. And of course, like a lot of little girls, I wanted to be a ballerina. And I went, she finished. I remember that I was next door to where to the neighbors next door. And I spent a lot of time there. I don't, because they had three daughters, and the middle daughter, whose name was Lolita, adored children. And
Mhm.
so wherever Lolita would go, I would follow her. She was very popular with the boys. I guess the boys had to put up with me too, because there I would be there. Anyhow, I remember going to the front porch. We were getting ready. I can't remember where we were getting ready. And at this time, my mom was in Havana studying to be a hairstylist, and she had taken my brother with her. My older sister was in boarding school, so I was left at home, with my dad and the housekeeper. Another reason why I spent a lot of time next door, because at home I was bored. Dad was working. The housekeeper was busy doing the cleaning and washing and taking care of me, but next door was more fun, so I spent a lot of time there. Anyhow, I went to the porch and I did an arabesque, and I lost my balance and I fell down with my arm like this and I broke this arm.
Oh no.
So I guess that in my 4-year-old mind, I thought that, gee, this is kind of dangerous anyhow.
And there went your ballerina dreams out the window.
Well, even though in high school I was a dancer, but it was modern, modern dance. I really got into it. And my first 2 years of college, I also did that, and that was fine. But the idea, of Alicia Alonso stayed in my mind.
Yeah.
So they wanted an outline. So I wrote an outline and a first chapter, and I sent it. And that was my first sale.
Oh, that's amazing. What a great story.
And that book was named one of the top 100 books by the New York Public Library in
Wow.
1993. All right, I say, oh, wow, this is great. I worked very hard on that middle grade biography.
Of
And
course.
then a friend of mine who is a writer, and she was also a freelance editor, said, hey, Troll and Associates, they don't exist anymore. They went bankrupt. Says, but they have a line of folk tales from the world. And I said, can you write a Cuban folk tale? And I said, where am I going to find information about this? But I did find it because I have a set of encyclopedias that
Mhm.
were published in Cuba that my late cousin gave me. So I started looking, and this was my second book, Child of the Sun. And that book is about why eclipses occur.
Okay.
And and then I figured, oh, and then it came out. That was my second book. And then life got in the way. And
Mhm.
I wasn't really focusing on writing as much. I was very busy. I still wrote. I still belonged to a critique group, but I wasn't. I mean, school can be exhausting, and if you're doing a good job,
Yes.
and I am very happy to say that I was not the kind of teacher who would hand out a workshop or sat back at her desk doing whatever. I was the kind of teacher that was in constant motion, engaging the students.
Right.
And then, well, I taught. besides regular, Spanish as a second language, I also taught the AP courses in Spanish, and
Mhm.
that took a lot of time,
I'm sure.
especially the AP Spanish literature course, because
Mm,
how do you make exciting some boring reading that is required to be read, but it was written in the 14th century, and what do I have in common with that? So
right.
it was always finding, okay, how do I connect this to their life so that they're eager about and analyzing this? And then, so it wasn't until 8 years ago when I retired, people would ask me, well, what are you going to do during retirement? Because I have a lot of energy and they just didn't see me, as a couch potato at all. I
Right,
said,
right.
I am going to write full time.
Yeah.
And I treated it as if it were a job,
Mm-hmm.
with a schedule. I get up, I do this, and then I spend this time writing. And then COVID happened. And well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do is I'm going to write.
Yeah.
And I found a community of writers because I got an email and I figured, oh, let me explore this. There's this man who lives here in LA named Jack Grapes, and he had developed a method of writing called method writing, and it's very organic. And I figured, well, let me find out what this is about. And
Mm-hmm.
I found this community of writers. And then the other thing that also happened was the Publishers Weekly gave me a free subscription to the magazine. So every week I would just, "Oh, let me find out where can I send my things."
Yeah.
And Ray Craft Books had a big ad one time.
Okay.
And I figure, oh, they're looking for this type of thing. Maybe Why the Turtle Walks So Slowly would work. So I look at my files and I take folders and I say, okay, this is where I'm going to be sending it. And of course, time goes by because you know how that is. But I get an email. I get an email from my publisher. We really like this, but nothing else. Of course, we're still in the void of COVID.
Right.
I remember even calling my great nephew, with whom I have a great relationship. I say, hey, Josh, guess what? This is happening. He goes, oh, great, Tia, that's wonderful. All right. But then I didn't hear it all. And it was so, I mean, the shutdown. And in LA, it was worse than some
Right.
other cities, the way that it was. And I forgot about it. And then one day I am cleaning my emails and I see the email and I said, I have to follow up on this. And I wrote back. I said, are you still interested in this manuscript? Right away, I get an answer. Yes, we want to publish it. Well, they were also in the void. Everybody was trying to cope with what they were doing. And then that's how Why the Turtle Walks So Slowly was acquired.
Wow.
And then I had to wait an extra year for
Because
the
of the
publication because of the illustrator.
oh,
Because
because of the
the
illustrator.
illustrator,
Okay.
my editor wanted to find the right illustrator. And I feel that it was worth it
Yeah.
because I love the illustrations in
Yeah.
this book. There's things in here that I want to point out. You see this? This is a hutia, and that is a large rodent that is native to
Oh.
Cuba. Oh yeah, he did that. And then the other thing that he did, let me find it because I got it. Okay. Oh no, that's not it. What did I marked it so that I could show in here. Or did I mark the wrong thing? Oh, right here. This, this fruit right here, this is a mamey, and it's a fruit that you find in tropical countries. And this man, Aris, must have read my mind because That was my favorite fruit in Cuba.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I still find it, there's a a little market not far from where I live that they sell products from Spain and products from different Latin American countries. And once in a while they have it, but it's very expensive. So once a year I treat myself to it. But he just brought in, well, the coconut trees close to the beach. I remember that,
Oh,
I remember going to the beach and seeing the coconut trees and somebody chopping them off with a machete and then poke the hole and just hand it so that could drink the coconut, the coconut water.
yeah,
So it was like, wow, he really got it. But I
yeah,
think something really important about this book is, all right, this story came about because I remember two things from a story that my paternal grandmother used to tell us about this. And around, well, the turtle having to carry the drum and the man that come out and beat up everybody.
right.
Those were the only two things that I remember. And my maternal grandmother was a character, right? She was not the warm and fuzzy grandmother at all. She
Right,
was tall, thin, wore her long hair in a bun, the back of her head. She wore long sleeves that I don't know how she could wear long sleeves in Cuba that is so hot and so
right,
humid. And every day, everyone had to go and visit Abuela. So after school, my brother, who's 3 years younger than I am, and my sister would go later. Oh, and even my parents. My mother, after work, had to go and see her. And my dad, oh, same thing. Everybody had to go and see Abuela every day. And if we didn't, you would catch hell for that. She would get very upset. So we would go. She lived with my aunt, and my aunt, had children, and my cousin Paul, who is the same age of my brother. So we would play. Well, little
right,
kids squeal and they make noise. And Abuela was of the belief that children should be seen but not heard at
right,
all. So she also had health issues, and I understand nowadays as an adult that yeah, she was uncomfortable, and I get it. And you have little kids, even though they're playing, they're bothering you. So finally, I guess when she just couldn't handle it anymore, she would just say, "Come over here, sit there." And so the three of us would just go and we would sit in rocking chairs, my brother and my cousin together in this big rocking chair, and me, and she'd go, "I'm going to tell you a story." Oh, oh, that was fine. So all of a sudden, her demeanor would change completely. And she would weave these wonderful stories. I mean, that Brothers Grimm, Hans Christian Andersen, and my favorite, The Thousand and One Nights.
oh, yeah,
So that was my favorite book as a child, The Thousand and One Nights. And I guess that listening to Abuela's stories, I was just internalizing all of that. It was magical,
mhm,
you
yeah,
know. Even though this woman, oh, she wouldn't let kiss her,
right,
extend her hand. There was a reason why, because her brothers and sisters had died of TB
ah,
and she had been exposed to that, so she kind of felt that if we kissed her, what if? Well, obviously she didn't have it at all, but that
right.
was what was in her, in her mind. So all these stories, I was just taking them all in, and that's how this book, that's where it comes from.
That's amazing.
And Abuela and I, because I am very outspoken, Abuela and I sometimes we have our words. And, my dad would say, don't pay attention to her. She's your grandmother. She's not feeling well, blah, blah, blah. But then, yeah, Abuela and I butt heads.
Right, right.
but then as I got older, well, she had cataracts in her eyes, and this is a time when cataract surgery was serious stuff.
Okay.
So, and so she couldn't see very well, and she loved to read. So I would read to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember those times when, I would be reading to her. Or she would
Yeah.
send me to the store because every day at dinner, she would eat these Cuban crackers. Oh, they're so good, but they're so bad for you, but they're really good. And so I would go to the corner store and buy her two Cuban crackers because Abuela would have with her dinner the Cuban crackers.
Gotcha. Wow.
No.
I think it's so cool when there's those intergenerational relationships, even if, yes, there's some rough spots and whatever. But I think, as you said, as we get older, we really come to appreciate all the other pieces of that relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we called her abuela and we consider her our grandmother, but she actually was my great aunt. But, to
Okay.
me, she raised my father and his three siblings
Okay.
because they lost their parents. Well, my grandmother, my grandmother, she died young of TB, and a
Oh.
year later, my grandfather passed away. So my great aunt, abuela, she took these four kids and she raised them. She was determined to keep them together, and she did.
Yeah.
And the four kids, they adore her. And
That's
then when we decided to come to the United States from Cuba because of the Cuban Revolution, she kept saying, "Just leave me in the home for old people." I said, "Well, we're not going to leave you there." I know. It's really sad, Tony. I said, "We're not going to do that." So I came to the United States first with my sister and my brother. And I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Pan flights.
no.
Okay, so I am a Peter Pan kid. Peter Pan flights started in 1960, and this was at the time the largest exodus of children in the Western Hemisphere. So there were rumors in Cuba that the children were going to be taken away. The government, the Castro government, was going to take them away from the parents. So the parents were going to lose parental rights, and the kids would be sent to government school or to Russia or countries in the Eastern Bloc. Well, we didn't know about that because my family applied to leave Cuba as a family unit, my parents and the three kids. But when we got the visas, they only came for the kids. And my parents didn't want to miss that. They'd say, no, no, we can't wait because we don't, I mean, was an environment that you didn't know from day to day what was going to be happening. And we have family in California. One of my dad's sister and her two sons lived in California. That's why we ended up in Los Angeles.
Right.
So we came to live with that aunt and, the cousins, and my parents stayed in Cuba. And it wasn't until the advent of the internet in which I was looking up things, and I was looking up things about Cuba because I left Cuba when I was 12, wanting to find out things that I didn't know. And Peter Pan flights popped up. And then reading about it, I said, oh my gosh, we came, that was us. I called my sister, who's 5 years older than me, and I said, do you know about this? She says, no, I don't know about this. And the more that I dug into it, the more that I found out about it. It turns out that there was this gentleman, I don't remember the day that we came, but this gentleman would greet the kids, the unaccompanied minors, right? And kept a record of it. And then somehow I connected with his daughter, and she sent me a copy of the log where our names are. And the Miami Herald newspaper also has a database of all these kids, over 14,000 Cuban
Oh my
kids
gosh. Wow.
exactly came to the United States unaccompanied. So some went into orphanages, others into foster care, and kids like me who came to family. And we were very lucky that my parents were able to reunite with us 4 months afterwards.
Okay.
So my aunt Margot and her family also decided to leave Cuba because, I mean, that aunt and my parents very close. We lived
Right.
around the corner in Cuba. We were very, we were very close. So they weren't going to leave Abuela behind. No way. I mean,
Right.
no way. Even this is, oh, we're not. So Abuela came to the United States, but it was very, very hard on her.
Yeah.
And she passed away 3 months after she came.
Mm, that's very sad.
It was very sad because, she, in a way, she knew all this information about the family, but I was too young to find out about it.
Yeah.
My grandfather had been born in Spain, and I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
with his death, we just okay. So what about the family? What about these things? And Abuela Quina knew these things, but that's life.
Yeah.
That's life.
Yeah.
So in some ways, a, a little bit of her lives in
In
why
this
the
book.
turtle,
Yeah.
yeah, in this book, why the turtle walks so slowly. And you know for me it's interesting that the two women that I butted head with were the women that have really inspired me, because I mean my abuela and my mother was a woman, that I know you asked me three things to tell other writers, and number one is never give up. And
Mm-hmm.
my mother never gave up. My mom never gave up, and I don't give up. And writing for children is difficult. It's very competitive. There's very few people that actually make a living at it.
Right.
But if this is what you believe in, that you feel that your stories should be in the hands of kids, never give up. you
Right.
know you just work the manuscript. You're going to revise it and revise it and revise it until you just get it right. And then the other thing, read a lot of children of picture books.
Mm-hmm.
You have to read a lot of picture books.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one that, I mean, the stuff that is written, the subjects of picture books, it's like, whoa, how did they think of that?
Yeah. Yeah. So many amazing stories out there.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing stories out there. I mean, incredible stories. So no, just, don't give up if that's really what you want to do. And I don't know how many how many rejections I got. I
Mm-hmm.
counted them actually, over 50 rejections until I found my agent.
Mm-hmm.
And the fastest one was one that I sent the manuscript, and by golly, that person must have been right at their computer and heard a ping, and immediately I get a note. It was a personal note and saying, no, this really isn't, thank you for your submission, but this really isn't for me, even though blah, blah, blah. And I said, wow, it was as if they were waiting there to
Right.
reject me, right?
Right.
That's what they're doing. So you're going to be getting that. And even with having an agent, it is a magic. They're also out there. It is a magic because
Mm-hmm.
it's very competitive, and it's very subjective
Yes, it
business.
is. Mm-hmm.
You never know. I mean, my first book, Alicia Alonso, First Lady of the Ballet, it just happened that that's what they were looking for.
Right.
And I had it. I had the idea. I had
Right.
an outline that I had come up with the idea, well, yeah, I'll write this book. So you you just never know, you know?
Yeah.
And then oh, I thought I turned this off. Okay, I don't want to answer any text. Sorry about that.
No,
And I had another book come out last year, and that is this book. And it's called Marisol Can't Sleep. And this is a bilingual book.
right, I see that. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, it got rejected several times. And I got the idea for that book while walking. I am a walker. There's a golf course near me, and I like to walk around the golf course, or I I go different routes because I discover new things.
Yeah.
And my latest is, and let me look up this up because I have it here. I have a an app that, oh, what is it called? Anyhow, I have an app. Oh, it's called Seek, Seek.
Yes.
All
To
right.
look up nature things.
Yes. So
Yes.
I walk around the neighborhood. I say, oh, what's the name of the
Yes.
plant exactly?
Yes.
So right now, my thing is that I want to discover different plants. So I go around the neighborhood doing my walk, and I stop and say, oh, okay, this one, and I'm posting them. I
Yeah.
post them under winter in LA because we really haven't had much of a winter in LA this year. It has been very warm. And so I get ideas while I am walking. And the idea for Marisol Can Sleep, I got it while walking. I said, what if it's this little girl that she's can't fall asleep? She has to, and she starts counting animals,
Mm.
except the animals stay in the bed. And she counts from 1 to 20. I said, all right, how am I going to make a bedtime story different from what is out there? So, oh, I need to combine counting book. She counts animals. That's perfect. So now it's a bedtime story, and it's also a counting book. And
Uh-huh.
so she's counting to 20, and the bed breaks down because the
Are so
animals
heavy.
stay there, they
Right.
stay there. And of course, then she has to find a solution, right, to falling asleep. So I got that idea while I was walking. And I have another book coming out at the end of this year. It's called Sarah the Great. Oh, this has a connection to music, Tony. Sarah wants to sing rancheras songs like Lola Beltran, who is a real ranchera singer, Mexican singer.
Hmm.
But there's a problem. Sarah can't carry a tune.
Classic problem.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my problem. I cannot remember lyrics, and I cannot carry a tune. So the ideas just come from everywhere.
Right, right.
You
Yes,
just never know when they are going to, to hit
right.
you. And then there's another book that's called Side by Side that my agent is trying to sell. And that one, the idea came, yeah, while walking too, because
Mhm.
I'm walking. I said, I didn't tell myself, I need a new pair of walking shoes. This don't feel that comfortable. So I said, hey, what about a little girl who runs? But there's a rival there. And I came out with that. And I used to be a runner. I ran. I mean, I was a hardcore runner. And I said, oh, what about this? But there's more to it, to the book, than just the running. And that came out because I thought, I need a new pair of
Right.
walking shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything can be a story if you just, yeah. It's just a matter of finding the right way into it and framing it in the right way. But then I think also what you said about, when you were writing about Alyssa, like there has to be this cosmic alignment, and so it is
Yes.
very competitive, and it does depend very much on the market and what people are looking for in the moment and what you have that matches that. There has to be that match. There has to be, I mean, like so many things have to align. And then maybe you get a book deal, but it has to be the right story to the right person at the right time.
Absolutely.
All of that has to just line up. And when you think about it in that way, like it's a very frustrating business, but when you frame it in that way, you're like, well, no wonder it's so difficult. I mean, when you put all that together and you think, yeah, I mean, it has to be the right story. And it's hard when you're querying and they go, oh, this is just not a fit for my list. And you know, well, what is it? I mean, like it's frustrating, but when you think about there's something specific that they're looking for, and this is not it. This is just not that. And so you have to find the person that's looking for that one thing. It's literally like a needle in a haystack or finding your one true love, right? It's not just like, oh, here's a cool story. Let me sell it to you because it's lovely and wonderful. It has to check all their boxes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's right. And sometimes that editor may want the story, but when it's taken to the sales people, they may
Mhm.
say, no, that's not going to
Exactly.
sell
Right.
because it is a business. The
It is.
publisher wants
That's
to
right.
make money. I mean,
That's right.
really, they
Yeah.
do. So, no, that story isn't going to work at all.
Yeah.
So that can happen.
It can. And does very, very often.
Very often,
Yeah.
very often.
So I want to dig in a little bit with you to the music in this book. I know when we first talked, you're like, well, there's not really any music in there, but there is absolutely music in this book. I mean, the whole idea of this drum. I mean, it all starts with the drum, you know. And so, talk to us a little bit about the music of the book and how the drum figures in and other musical pieces maybe of the story.
Well, when I was writing this, I don't really think that it was in my mind at all, but I created sounds that tune,
Yeah.
tune, tune.
Yeah.
mean, drums are really important in Cuban music.
Right.
And yeah, I can, I can move to those sounds
Yeah.
really, really well. It's like in me. And so the story, well, the drum.
Yeah.
Turtle wants the drum because he wants power. He's
Right.
envious of Mabea. He wants power. And I I also, I guess because I'm a runner, I wanted to create the sound of running.
Mm-hmm.
Something that would identify with each of the main characters. So identifying with Mabella, which I'm sure that in the original story, it wasn't a woman, probably a man, but I wanted a woman.
Right.
So I wanted, that beat of corre, 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 pa, and rep, peke, peke, rep, peke, pa, and I can see little kids just getting to it and just
Yeah.
going with that all the doom, doom, doom. I want the drum, boom,
Uh-huh.
boom, boom, of just doing that. And when I sent it to you and you mentioned it, I said, wow, she's right. It's here. And I guess that I was again internalizing that. And it just came out. And when the first version of this book, I remember reading as a mentor text. Ashley Bryan was a wonderful writer and illustrator. And I remember reading one of his books, cannot remember the name, in which he included what I have done here. That's He ran in the morning, he ran at noon, he ran all night singing boom, boom, boom,
Mm-hmm.
and the rep peke peke and the corre corre pa. And I don't know, I think that sometimes when we write, things are flowing through us that we don't really know about. And in spite of having lived in the US since 1961 in California, away from a Cuban community, I a part of me, inside of me, is very, very Cuban.
Yeah, of
And
course you are. Yeah.
and of the books that I have written, even more than the one Child of the Sun, this one has the rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
It has the beat,
Mm-hmm.
because if I if I am listening to music, if I am cooking and I am listening to music, and it depends on what I am listening to, and I don't pay attention to the lyrics, but if something, I know everybody's Spotify, I have Pandora still, and I have my channels there. And of course, in Pandora, I have channels that have to do with Celia Cruz or music similar to that. Yeah, I've been known to be cooking and then
Yeah.
moving to that sound, and that's what I think is the musicality in in here, the beat of the drum that is so integral to Cuban, to a lot of Cuban music.
Mm-hmm. I love
Because
that. Yeah.
there's also classical Cuban music, there's also that. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Ernesto Lecuona.
I'm not.
Steve, oh, well, okay, so he was the foremost Cuban composer of the 20th century.
Okay.
And his music was not like Celia Cruz. It was kind of classical. I mean, one of his very well-known pieces is called Siboney, Siboney, Siboney. And you do hear the sounds of the claves in there,
Uh,
but it is not like, Celia Cruz, that is all, like La vida es un carnaval, life is a carnival, like that. But you do hear it.
uh-huh.
So even not musical me, because I am a piano dropout. uh
Me too. I can relate. Hey, no judgment
Okay, so
here.
I am a piano dropout, and I
Same.
and I used to play the guitar. I will use it in the classroom, but I don't do that at all. I mean, I gave my guitar to my great niece, who's very musical. I mean,
Okay.
she really, yeah, but not I. She must have gotten that from my brother, who's her grandfather, not from me. I didn't get that at all. But it's in me, it's in me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think those rhythmic refrains definitely part of the musicality of the book, definitely. And I do love, I mean, the whole story hinges on this idea of the drum. It all starts as a drum. And I can just as a matter of fact, I was watching something recently. It was during November, I think, during Native American Heritage Month, and they were on. I was showing a video to my students, and they had taken turtle shells and cleaned them out, and they were using them as drums. And so
Drums.
when I was reading your story, that was one of the things that came to my mind was how they had different sizes of turtle shells, and they were tapping, and so of course different pitches, and so yeah, I mean, I think there's so much that kids would really enjoy from that whole idea of the drum being the turtle shell. I just think that's really super fun for kids. And then that, yeah, I think you're right. I think they would definitely repeat those rhythmic refrains and really enjoy that piece of it as well.
Well, I have a friend who has a 3-year-old grandson, and Nancy bought him the book, and Nancy took a video because he was just Theo was just walking around going boom, boom, boom.
Right?
And he got it. He said, "Oh, Nancy, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really great that Theo has just enjoyed my book so much."
Yeah.
And Tony, that we put so much of ourselves in what we write.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there's something about children's book writers that we're very giving.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
very helpful. There isn't this animosity. Oh, well, you're just beginning. No, we share
Yeah.
with people. We want other writers to be successful too,
Yeah.
because there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
What I write, I describe myself what I write. I'm a children's book writer who writes book with a Latin flavor,
Mm-hmm.
because that's who I am.
Right.
And in part because I want all kids to see themselves that in my books, that the kids that I write about, if they're a Latino kid, but that they have the same problems that
Right.
any kid would have.
And
You
that's
know,
the universality of it.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, Marisol can't sleep. Little kids, they go to bed.
I struggled with that when I was
You
little.
know, Mom,
Yeah.
I can't sleep.
Right.
Somebody who wants to sing, imitate their favorite singer, but they can't carry the tune. Little kid, I want to be in the choir, but I am not good enough to be in the choir. Those
Mm.
same kinds of problems that kids just
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. Universal problems. Yep. Specific culture and beautiful Latina flavor, but universal problems for sure.
Exactly.
Hmm.
They're no that those kids are not different. I mean, and
Right.
and of course we also write from our own experience. And I'd write from this world that was inhabited by a grandmother that was not warm and fuzzy, but that was an incredible storyteller. And I relished the times when she would say, "Okay, I am going to tell you a story," to the point that when I was in fourth grade, so my dad had this tradition that if we got good grades at the end of the school year, we could ask for a present.
Okay.
And when I was in the fourth grade, my dad asked me what I wanted. And I said, I wanted my own copy of the Thousand and One Nights.
Mm.
So he says, well, go find what copy you want. And in spite of the political situation in Cuba while I was growing up, even before Castro and after Castro, the city where I lived was very safe. And at
Good.
9 years old, I could walk around, in
Mm.
part because it was not a humongous city. Cienfuegos is not a huge city, and because everybody knew who my father was. And so, if you did something that wasn't right, by the time you got home, your parents would know about it. That kind of an environment,
Right.
but very safe. So I went to several bookstores, and then I found the book I wanted.
Mm.
And I remember that it had an illustration. The cover was blue, hardcover, and he had an illustration of Shahardasa leaning on pillows and the Sultan in a corner listening to her story. So Shahardasa and her sister, she's telling the story. And not only that, but the pages of the book, what do they call it? Gold.
Uh-huh.
So but the book at the time cost $5, and $5 for a book, that was a
A
lot.
lot. Yeah.
That was very, very expensive. So, I went home and I told dad and say, Papi, I found this at this bookstore and that bookstore. I said, but that one, oh, it's really gorgeous, but it's $5. But guess what? He bought it.
Mm.
I remember the last day of school coming home, and on my bed, there was a present all wrapped up. And there was the book. in part because the man could not say no to his children, but
It's a daddy problem. Yeah.
exactly. But he could have gotten me any of the others. And then I do remember reading to Abuela from that book,
Oh,
sharing with her and reading to her from that book. And of course, I couldn't bring it with me at
right,
all. But
right.
then in 1970, I visited Spain and I bought my own copy, and I have my own copy in
Wow.
Spanish of The Thousand and One Nights. It is not as beautiful as the copy I owned in Cuba, but I have my own copy. So all these things I bring into my stories.
Hmm. All those experiences.
All those experiences, exactly.
Yeah,
So don't follow trends. Write what
right.
you want to write because, and I have heard this, I don't know how often, when you follow a trend, by the time the book is sold and it comes out,
The trend is over.
exactly, the
Yeah,
trend is
yeah.
over.
The trends change so quickly. They are like the wind. Yeah, the trends
So,
are like the winds.
that's right.
Yeah,
Write what you feel that you want to, that you want to write. And the same thing, if you happen to be a teacher and you're teaching, the writing for the kids, allow them to be as creative as they can be.
yeah,
Something
absolutely.
happens once they get into middle school and when they get to high school, and what I call the infamous 5 paragraph essay, which is taught for essay writing in English classes and
Hmm.
history classes. And I even did that in my AP classes because that's what they had to do. And
Right,
that stifles creativity.
for sure. Yeah. But I mean, it's useful in its own place. I think there should be a place for both, right? But I
Right.
think oftentimes we cater to, speaking from a teacher lens, we cater to what has to be done, what's going to be tested, what's going to be
Yes,
required, and we don't make time then for that more creative piece that also
exactly.
needs to be available. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. They need to be able to know both.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
also hope that this book, that it can also be used, you can also teach social studies out of it
Absolutely.
because of its relation with Cuba and
Yes.
the Caribbean, and of course writing. It can also connect to science because turtles are reptiles. So
Right.
you can use this book several ways.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely. And then you have, again, coming back to the drum, I mean, from a science perspective, you could attack that, how do drums work and what vibrates and how that changes depending on the skin that you use and how tightly and the pitched drums versus unpitched drums. I mean, you have the drum as the center. You could do that. You could do the rhythmic, you could actually translate those into notation and tap those out and sing those rhythms, play those rhythms. So yeah, I mean there's a ton of stuff, and that's the kind of things that I will link up in the little teacher section when I add that in for the
Okay.
second week. So everything you just said, that's the kind of stuff that I put in there because yes, I mean picture books are rich and they typically have multiple layers, and there's things that you can pull out that will definitely connect to your curriculum in some way. And it makes it really lovely to be able to bring in picture books to enrich your curriculum in those ways. But also just picture books for the sake of picture books
Oh
and
gosh, they're
storytelling
beautiful.
for the sake of storytelling.
Uh, The magic of picture books is that you could tell these great stories in just 500 words or less.
It's amazing.
And that's amazing.
It is.
And I'm not saying this to knock down middle grade, authors or YA authors. No, no, it's different. But picture
Mhm.
books and then the connection between those words and
Mhm.
illustrations. I feel that Aristides Hernandez, the illustrator, he has brought my words to life.
Isn't that just the most amazing thing ever? I mean, that experience of having somebody take your words and transferring them into these amazing, beautiful, colorful illustrations. Like when I first saw the art for my book, I was absolutely overwhelmed. It was like all this came out of my work. It's just I don't often find myself without the words, but I don't have the words to put to that feeling. It's just beyond.
So, yeah, sometimes you need to include an art note, but don't control that. Give
Exactly.
the illustrator the space to
All the
create
freedom.
all the world, because this is not only my book, it
Yeah,
is also the illustrator's book, because
right.
one, my words would not work without the illustrations.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. I mean, yeah, and that's often the case. So if somebody were to ask you, so what is one thing that you hope, so we talked about all these layers and all these messages you could pull out and all these things that you could teach, but if somebody were to say what is one thing that you hope that people don't miss from your book, what would that be?
Everything.
All the things.
The stories, relish the illustrations. I hope the book opens up a door
Hmm.
to the country of my birth,
Yeah.
that it opens a door to other things that they hadn't even thought about.
Yeah.
I want them, I want them to take away that wow, you know, look at all the things that I can learn from this book. And of course, being a folk tale, there's a message.
Right.
You know, I think one of them is careful what you wish for.
For
And
sure. Yeah.
and the other one, don't be envious,
Hmm.
and that was how, I mean, things were taught. We're going to teach you
That's
about
right.
this, obviously, but that's the nature of the folk tale. But yeah, it's a very rich book, and it's
Yeah.
not that I'm not proud of everything else that I have written. Maybe this one because of the connection. Well, I said this
Yeah.
before with my grandmother. It is, this is keeping alive something,
Yeah.
for my grandkids,
Mm.
for the little ones, the grandkids of the cousins,
Yeah.
that it's keeping that little bit of Cuba. Hey, yeah, you are an American because we are Americans,
Of course. Yeah.
but a little bit of this in you.
Hmm. You can be more than that, right? Like you can be both. You can be 100% American and also 100% Cuban. It's not part and part. Like they both totally infuse who you are, right? It has to be that way.
Who I am. It is, it
Yeah.
is, it is who I am. I
Yeah.
mean, yes. I mean, with my great niece and my great nephew, they're young adults and I am close to them. And my great nephew is a professional snowboarder. And his sister used to be, well, skiing. And every time he would do something great, I would just, he says, you know what? And, snowboarding, that's the Cuban in you.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Although there's no snow in Cuba, right? But it was just that's our joke. Hey, that's the Cuban
Right.
in you,
Right.
that kind of thing. But yeah, Tony, and I am very thankful for this opportunity to talk to you. And I mean, my book,
Yeah. It's a lovely book, and it has been such a fascinating conversation with you. I've enjoyed every minute of this. Before we wrap it up, though, I do want to give you an opportunity, and you did mention already some of the work that's coming up next. But is there any like any places that you're going to be, or anything that people should look out for what's coming next that you want to call attention to?
Well, I am not doing school visits or anything big yet, but I do know that when my next book comes out, there will be an event at my local bookstore. I live very close to probably one of the best children's bookstores in the Los Angeles area. You know, I'm going to put a plug for them because they have been so nice for me. Children's book and music and children's book. God, I'm getting mixed up with the other children's books, and it's in West Los Angeles, and you can order things from them, and they are wonderful people, and they know kids book.
Right, right,
Children's book world really knows kids book, and you go there and you say, hey, I'm looking a book for whatever, and they will find it for you, and they're wonderful people, and i am I am very, very happy that they made it through COVID,
right, right.
because so many businesses closed, but they were able, they are an institution in Los Angeles. I cannot say enough about them.
Well, thank you for letting us know about that. That's awesome. And thank you for this lovely, I mean, it's just been such a fun conversation. You are a lovely
Yes.
conversationalist. I've absolutely enjoyed chatting with you. So, we often talk, PB Jams listeners, about all the ways you can support authors. So, do all the things. Go do the reviews, purchase the book, give it to your friends,
Yes.
teacher gifts. I mean, this would be a really fun teacher gift. It's just a lovely book, and I think you'll absolutely enjoy it. So, do share the love, word of mouth. We talk about that really often. The reviews, requesting it at your library, requesting it at your school, your books, your local bookstore. All those things are really, really helpful to authors who come and visit, and they're promoting their books, and they're volunteering their time to come and share with the writing community and the teaching community. So, we are so glad that you joined us for this episode of PB Jams, and we really hope that we will see you next time. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony, for this opportunity. It has been very nice to meet you and have this conversation.
Very
Thank you.
nice. Agreed. Of course. Yes. All right.
For
Well,
music teachers, interviews and book reviews, a little singing and dancing, PB Jams, yummy books and music, PB Jams, reading, writing, teaching, PB Jams, what a yummy treat, jamming PBs all the time, PB Jams, 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 jams. Picture books and jams. We'll see you next time for PB